Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the top-tier brewing stand. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
It's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think. Jamil Zainashev and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters.
Greetings.
The Cretin himself.
Indeed.
Mr. John Palmer.
Back and ready to talk about beer again.
Back in the saddle yet again.
Yes.
That's what you should get into, saddle making.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Is there a lot of...
What is the word for saddle making? I bet you there's like, it's like a farrier for shoeing horses. And everything has its own name. I bet you that what do they call the people who make guitars?
Luthiers.
Yeah. There you go. Right. So, what is it for saddle making? Are you googling that now, Porno Steve?
I will.
It's probably something like fairy leather or something like that.
Fairy leathers. Speaking of fairy leatherers, how's our good friend John Blickman doing?
He's in fine health. He took me shooting this past weekend, in fact.
Oh, yeah? He's always told me if I could make it out there, he would take me a shooting, me and my daughters. And I'm like, yeah, that'd be cool. What did you guys shoot?
Well, we shot a Smith & Wesson M&P. That's a 9mm military type pistol. And then a, what do you call it? A 1911 semi-automatic 45. Les Bear, I believe he said.
An old military.
It's a wonderful pistol.
Yeah.
Solid.
And then an AR-15. An AR-15 type rifle.
Right.
And those things are loud. Well, all of them are really loud, I guess, in a particular range. I mean, but we shot, I don't know, several hundred rounds, filled up 5 or 6 targets, and I did pretty well.
There you go. You represented.
Yep.
Yeah. I went with our local PD guys. On their off time, and they brought out like their collection of weapons. Oh my God, it was insane! It was so cool. I mean, you're like, this is a Kalashnikov, and this is. I'm like, holy crap! So really cool stuff. Just awesome. I love going shooting. It's a great, and I think the people who don't appreciate it think that it is just super simple. It's like, you do what's the trick? You just point it and pull the trigger. It's like, no. There's a skill to shooting, and it's really cool being able to do it well.
It's definitely a sport in it.
Yes. I've taken both my daughters. Would not take my wife because I think she'd probably end up killing herself accidentally.
Oh, jeez.
But my daughters they're pretty darn good.
Nice.
My younger daughter, she's gone with me a number of times, and I think zombie apocalypse happens. That's the first one I'm handing a gun to. I would have her like here, take this.
I took a quiz once about how long I would survive in a zombie apocalypse. I'm just saying, don't rely on me.
Not long enough to even answer the quiz.
You had to cheat, huh?
2 days. Gone. I think it said I lasted 2 days.
She gone.
She gone.
Well, there's that, and then there's just being useful, and through your usefulness, people will save you. I've got the I brew beer.
I'm gonna have to attach myself to somebody who knows what they're doing.
Hey, you hang with me, I'd take care of you.
Okay.
I would save you from the zombie apocalypse. All right?
Somebody's got to.
That's right. I mean, if I could choose between you and Steve, well, it's going to be you.
It's all right.
Steve's going to have to go on his own.
It's fine.
You know, there's always somebody that just gets left out. And
That's
Steve,
all right.
you'd be the one we just like, here, just zombie fodder.
Shove. Won't last very
Walk
long.
softly
Have you
and
seen
carry
me?
a lot of bubble
Right,
gum.
yeah, a couple of
There's
bites.
not much meat,
There's
man.
not much left.
I'll give you 5 seconds at the tops.
That's just enough time for us to run away.
I don't run.
Well, there you go. Maybe I wouldn't be able to save you. I was, there comes a time you got to make some decisions.
You would be better off.
Well, there you go.
Save the beer.
Yeah, right. Yeah. We have a lot of fun. All right. Speaking of fun, how about today? We are going to go through our a little bit of live Q&A. We've got
We've had a lot of questions come through in the last couple weeks.
Yeah, there's the questions are never ending, and that's cool. You send them in to brewstrong@thebrewingnetwork.com, and while we don't respond to that, we actually gather them, sort through them, and then try and put together shows of your questions. Mm-hmm. So they do eventually get answered, I think.
Yeah.
And then if you are listening live, you can also call in, believe it or not.
Yes, that's Bevo's reason for existence, is she's waiting for your call.
888-401-BEER. Or you can join the chat and send your questions into the lovely Miss Bevo, and she will get them to us. If she thinks they are worthy, we may see them, and then we may answer them. So there you go. There's your 3 ways of getting questions into Brew Strong. All right. Today's collection of questions is about yeast and related stuff. Porno Steve, the first question, please.
The first question. Hey guys, since it seems so wasteful to buy a great Brettanomyces or Lacto PDO Brett beer and dump the bottle dregs down the drain, I was wondering if you have any tips for culturing the yeast/bacteria easily while still remaining sanitary. Just curious if you see any issues with the following process. Shake up a simple wort with 100 milliliters of water and 10 grams of DME in an 8-ounce mason jar, aiming for 1.03-ish wort.
Yeah, the 10-to-1 ratio, that's perfect.
Add a drop of firm cap to prevent a boil over. Toss it in the microwave for 1 to 2 minutes to boil the wort quickly and easily. Add a sanitized lid. Let it cool to pitching temp. Pitch the dregs and keep the lid on loosely to allow off-gassing of the starter. After a few days, tighten down the lid. Toss it in the fridge to be stepped up. Will the 1 to 2 minute boil time in the microwave be sufficient to properly sanitize the starter wort? Is there any major detriment to this process I'm not considering outside of boil time?
I would say you're fine with the short boil. It's not really going to be a problem. You should not tighten down the lid on a glass jar. Just leave it a bit loose, just in case a little bit more activity happens. You want to explode the jar in your fridge. And then I would also make sure to wipe down the opening of the bottle with alcohol swab or something, just to make sure it's clean before you pour it in. Shake it up really good. I think that's fine. You got anything to add to that, John?
No, that sounds good. I mean, one thing that yeast cultures do tell us is that when you do that, when you try to culture the dregs of a bottle, very often you will not get the same proportion of organisms in your culture that were present in the bottle, in the beverage that you drank. Some will adapt better to your little starter than others. But I mean, that's only a small caveat on what is otherwise perfectly acceptable.
Right, and are people truly trying to clone what they have? I mean, then it would be a concern. But I think if you're just looking at capturing some great aspects of some beer, then that's fine. And then I used to think, hey, it's not in the same proportions, but then I began, and I was talking with Greg Doss when he was at Yeast about this, and I was also talking to Chris White about this, and I told them both, I said, I've got this theory that even with incorrect proportions, the difference between bacteria and yeast and all these things and how they work, they all kind of eventually will reach the same point or a very similar point, regardless of how much you start with. They'll go until, and because whenever I did, and the thing that got me thinking about this was doing exactly this, taking bottles of different beers, just adding some wort to them, and then, I'd put a piece of parafilm over the top, and I'd, just shake up the bottle, and I'd let them sit, and then I would later on decant these, and I'd taste what had been fermented, and it tasted so much like what was in there. I was always shocked how well it worked. I'm like, there's got to be, something that's really helping this balance out. So I'd say, I think, John, your point's well taken. That I wouldn't count on it being exactly, especially it could be a totally different bottling yeast,
right?
But that being said, I think
yeah, don't let that scare you away. Just be aware that it may not be exactly the same.
Right. Good point. All right. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll have more of your questions right after this.
The 21st Amendment.
Watch out!
Do you like beer? They make beer.
Watch out!
Do you like friends and fun? They make friends and fun.
Watch out!
Do you still like to have a good time? The 21st Amendment.
Watch out!
The 21st Amendment in San Francisco, located at 563 2nd Street, 2 blocks from the building where baseball is seen and played. Try their beers in the pub or try them in the can, featuring
Monk's Blood.
Made with real monk.
Watch out!
So why not have the best time of your life? Go to the 21A and Sean O'Sullivan will personally greet you with a can of
Monk's Blood. The 21st Amendment.
Watch out!
This advertisement is not in any way affiliated nor associated with the 21st Amendment Bar and Pub, nor its subsidiaries or affiliates. This telecast is not copywritten by the 21st Amendment for the private use of the Brewing Network. Any use of this telecast without Jamil Zainashev's consent is prohibited. Suck it, JP.
Your support of the Brewing Network means everything to us. We couldn't produce shows without you. And we love giving you something extra for that support. Like Brew Your Own magazine. You already know it's a great brewing magazine full of recipes, equipment how-tos, discussions of beer styles, and brewing techniques. Whether you're new to brewing and just starting out or you're an old pro, you'll always learn something from the articles in Brew Your Own. Plus, there are amazing special issues like plans for building a Brutus 10 system, 250 classic clone recipes, and the Homebrewer's Answer Book. Brew Your Own magazine and BYO.com are awesome resources for any brewer. Whether for yourself or as a gift, when you subscribe or resubscribe from the Brewing Network homepage, you directly support programs like this. Get a great magazine and support the Brewing Network. Subscribe to Brew Your Own right from thebrewingnetwork.com.
Say hello to my little friend.
You've heard about White Labs Pure Pitch Yeast. Pure Pitch is yeast grown right in its final packaging. That means yeast that has never been exposed to the environment. And White Labs Pure Pitch Yeast for homebrewers is now available to everyone at homebrew retailers nationwide. Easy to use, perfectly sized, and ready to pitch. White Labs yeast, packaged using their Flex Cell process, ensures the purest yeast on the market. Visit whitelabs.com to learn more about Pure Pitch, Flex Cell technology, and how it's created. Then visit a homebrew retailer near you for your own perfectly sized package of Pure Pitch yeast. And you can say hello to your own little friend. www.whitelabs.com.
Back to the beer guys that make other beer guys look like wine guys. Brew strong.
All right, we're back. More yeasty beasty things afoot.
Right.
Porno Steve. apparently somebody came into the Hop Grenade and said, "Hey, Steve."
Yeah, it was Kenny from Maui. Came in, he tried to buy bottles. I was working on Hop Grenade side, and he was like, he just like put out his hand and shook it, and he was like, "Hey, Steve, I'm Kenny." And I was like, oh my God, it's happening. I had to fully embrace it, though. Of course I had to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All your fans know you as Porno Steve.
Cool guy.
I mean, both from your porno days and from now.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
There you go.
Cool. All right. So this
even
next
if you
one.
tried to change your name.
No, can't do it. I'm not escaping. How often does commercial yeast change characteristics inadvertently or not? 2014, I really started to pay attention to everything yeast. I was using WLP 800 and was extremely pleased with the beer it was making, especially after repitch. I take the winters off from brewing because it's freezing up here in the Eastern Sierras, so I discarded that yeast with my last batch of Pilsner Earl Quell clone. Come 2015, I couldn't wait to get my Pilsner on once again and ordered several new vials of that same yeast from White Labs through the same LHBS per Mr. Maltese starter recommendations. But this time the yeast would not drop. After fermentation was done, WLP 800 rested on top of the beer like some beer god's cloud looking down on its creation. The first time this happened, I was worried that the beer was infected and that I was watching a never-ending cycle of fermentation happen. Nope, this was Cloud WLP 800. In all repitches that I made in 2015, this cloud action happened so obviously. My strain of yeast had this trait of cloudness that wasn't present in the 2014 version. The beer was still great, though. So this got me thinking, how often can I expect the characteristics in commercial yeast to be different? Should I expect each vial of yeast to be different year to year? Perhaps expect change over 3 months, 6 months? Was this all error on the handling of the yeast from White Labs to LHBS to me?
I would I remember causing a lager yeast to like give up on flocculation completely myself. Most likely it is something that the listener did. I know that everyone's like, oh no, he's just defending White Labs or the homebrew shops or shipping from White Labs to homebrew shops. It could kill some yeast off. It's not going to change the flocculation characteristics. White Labs is very precise in what they do, and they do a lot of testing of. And they grow the yeast up from a stored culture, and they the testing that they do, you can really trust in what they do, and they're very good at what they do. When we have a problem at Heretic, my first assumption is we did something wrong. It's never White Labs. It's something we did. So it's something you did. And with lager yeast especially, and I think Chris was telling me this, he goes, within a generation or two, you can make it not flocculate.
Yeah, that's true.
And, it has to do with, oxygen levels, nutrient levels, a lot of other, how you grew it up, things like that. So, that can really throw it off. I mean, I had this experience where just in 1 or 2 generations, all of a sudden had yeast that never would flocculate again. I mean, have you had that experience, John?
No, I haven't, but I've, certainly people have told me similar stories. Calcium levels are very critical to yeast flocculation, and zinc and other, nutrients. So, if you're doing your own ranching, and you start selecting, from a population that's doesn't have the right nutrients for good flocculation, you could breed it out of them.
Well, and I lost my train of thought.
Hey, it happens to me too. Don't worry about it.
Right. That train has sailed, as we like to say in the business. And it's mainly lager yeast that changes that quick, but you could also do it with ale yeast. I have tried the yeasts from some of these other manufacturers, and I'm telling you, I had some decent results. I had some horrible results.
That is very true.
People just starting up, just like growing some yeast. I don't want to bash on any of them in particular, but be careful about what you get. And I've seen other people get yeast that is just like, would never drop from pitch one. So
yeah, I was made aware of a yeast cellar recently where, they took a White Labs culture and started growing it and propagating it themselves. And the people that reliable brewers that used it, they all swore that this particular strain or culture would stop fermenting and drop out at 1025. You just could not get it to ferment beyond 1025.
Right. Yeah.
And it looks like it's doing fine, and you got lots of yeast in there, but they just don't behave the same.
There's a real science to growing yeast, for brewing.
Yeah.
People think it's real simple, and so, I'm sure White Labs could make a horrible mistake, but, like I said, they have lots of checks and balances in there and lots of lab work that they do on every yeast that they grow up. So I just don't think it would be them. I think, look at your nutrients, look at your oxygen, look at your, how if you're doing a starter, how you're doing that. Something may have changed in the way that you're doing that, and that's most likely the cause.
Yeah.
All right. Next question.
All right. Yeast lost during fermentation. I've noticed when I don't leave enough headspace, I have a large amount of blow-off and yeast at the bottom of my blow-off bucket. I also notice an inverse relationship to the amount of blow-off and fermentation performance. Could I be losing all my good attenuators when I have a large amount of blow-off?
Yes.
There's so much yeast in suspension that it shouldn't make that big a difference. The ones that are riding up on top of the Croissant, they're really not necessarily that active in fermentation at that point anyways. And even if you get a large blow-off and a large amount of yeast into your blow-off bucket, I mean, how much yeast did you have left over at the end?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, like, how large is this blow-off, actually?
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if he's got a 5-gallon carboy that's completely full,
right,
and blowing off most of it, well, then, that is going to affect.
Sure. And sometimes, fermentation can be affected by other things. So that may be the visual thing that is queuing in on, but sometimes, like in open fermentation, having just that airspace on top, could be the difference, because a lot of times people will, they'll add oxygen to their fermenter, and if the fermenter is already very full, they're going to most likely get less oxygen into the wort than if there's headspace in the vessel, and then they bubble their oxygen in, and then headspace fills also with oxygen. They tend to get more into the wort in a case like that. So there's an instance of, you had less wort in there, more oxygen, and you were fermenting a lesser amount of wort with the same amount of yeast. Well, your pitching rate was higher. You had more oxygen. That's why it fermented better, or attenuated more, versus, the yeast fell out, and that's why I didn't get as much attenuation. So there's a lot of factors in there, so I wouldn't say, it doesn't have any effect, but I'd count that as a minor effect amongst all the others, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. We're just hammering through these things. We should get through
shooting through
7
so quickly
before we're done.
That's because Steve's using his porno voice.
Yeah.
Selecting yeast traits. Hey guys, I was wondering if I were to brew with an ale strain like Cal Ale or something, and I repitched it over and over again, and with every fermentation, I decreased the fermentation temperature 1 degree until I ended up at lager fermentation temperatures. Would I force that yeast to evolve into a lager strain with the same characteristics as the original ale strain? I'm still reading the yeast book, so forgive me if I haven't gotten to that part yet.
Survey says
no. I mean, it's not going to become a lager strain because, I mean, they're two different
species.
Yeah. So that wouldn't happen. You can put selective pressure on any collection of organisms, right? And then through natural mutations, and if you select for those mutations, then eventually you can change the overall makeup of the population. You're not actually changing the genetics necessarily, but you're selecting for certain traits that are a part of that organism that they may express or not at given times. Yeah. A lot of the yeast that we have today, the brewer's yeast that we have today, they came from a certain select group that over time, brewers used to hand off a pitch of yeast to, brewers that came over from Germany to the U.S. I've read stories, I don't know if this is true, but read stories of them, taking like a pressed brick of yeast, wrapping it up in like butcher paper, and they carry it with them in their luggage. And, like the month later when they got here, that's what they used to start up the breweries. And then they brew with it for, 150, 500 years. And sure enough, they've now selected for different traits. And, there's mutations. But the yeast are resistant to mutations. But they tend to, they can express different, traits more, in certain, when they grow.
It's like dogs. You can take a breed of dog and, over successive generations and selective, breeding, you can, change the legs and everything, but it's still that basic, breed. It may be a short-legged variety.
Unless you cross it with something else. And same thing, like you could take your own dog, and even without breeding, I mean, you feed it a lot, you feed it too much, and it becomes fat and lays on the pillow and, has heart disease, and it's like, okay, yeah.
Put him outside every night.
Right, I've changed my dog. It's like, well, yeah, you sure have. Yeah. Right. Versus, you're not necessarily genetically modifying. So I think you could express some traits, but you can't make it a lager yeast with ale characteristics. So
it's way too different.
If they did some genetic modification, then somebody could make something like that happen. But people, I guess, don't want that. So there you go.
All right.
Let's see here. Have you heard of our good friends at Lamont? I know John has.
Yeah.
John and I, we love the guys at Lamont. I enjoy E. Rector.
Yes.
Our good friend. He's so knowledgeable about water and all that, and such a nice guy. We use the Lamont. What are the names of the kits that they got? They got the Brew Lab, the Brew Lab Plus, and then the Brew Lab Pro. Right. And so the Brew Lab is kind of the basic water test kit. But basic doesn't mean it's inaccurate or hard to use or somehow shortchanging you. That's a solid, good water test kit. And then they've got the BrewLab Plus is that kit with a really nice pH monitor, right?
Right.
Which my guys have tried that one. They love that one. That's one of their favorites. And then the BrewLab Pro has got a few more tests and I think a little bit larger reagent vials and stuff like that. And that's what we use at Heretic. And we test our water with it.
And that includes the pH meter and a dissolved oxygen meter. High range.
Right. And we're real pleased with it. It really, we stopped sending our water out for testing. We actually test it in-house every week. so we can keep track of changes in the water conditions because of our water's made up of rivers and well water and lakes and everything else, and as the rains and all that come and go, it changes our water supply. So we're real pleased to be able to check that and make our adjustments based off of what we know to be fact. And we found the Lamont kit to be easy to use and highly precise. This is the type of testing that you get when you send your water out. They're using something very similar. So good stuff. Check them out. Lamont. There's probably a Lamont.com of some kind. I don't really know.
That's correct. Yeah, Lamont.com.
Lamont.com.
And follow the tabs to Brew Lab and Brewing.
There you go. Good stuff. All right, let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll have more of your questions right after this.
A few things happened 30 years ago.
ARPANET migrated to TCP/IP, and the Internet was born. Revenge of the Jedi was renamed Return of the Jedi and opened in theaters. Mila Kunis and Emily Blunt were born, beginning a rad fantasy in my mind.
But all of that pales next to the fact that HopTech opened its doors and began blowing homebrewers right out of their mash tuns. HopTech doesn't fuck around. Real people shipping awesome shit straight to you. Their new website is fast and easy to navigate. Or just call 800-379-4677 and let badass bitch Jade and the gadget guy Roberto blow their warm load of customer service all over you. So visit the site or visit the store in Dublin, California, and support those that support you. Get your brewing on at hoptech.com.
Hey, my brewing brothers and sisters. This is Jamel Zainashev, and I want to tell you about Heretic Evil Twin. You might be familiar with my homebrew recipe, which uses massive late hopping to create a balance between the malty sweet and the hoppy bitter, along with an outrageous malt and hop character. I wanted a beer with the same bold hop and malt character, so we played around with the homebrew recipe until we were able to make a great commercial version too. We've created a beer rich in malt character, full of caramel, toast, biscuit, and an ever so subtle roast note. On top of that, we piled in an insane amount of Citra and Columbus hops at the end of the boil, as well as in dry hopping. This damn-the-cost approach to hopping gives Heretic's Evil Twin a great blast of citrus and tropical fruit that can't be matched by any other hop. The result is a bold, malty, hoppy, but easy-drinking beer. This is our top seller, our flagship beer, and I couldn't be prouder of it. Cheers.
To find Heretic beers near you, click on Find Some at hereticbrewing.com. Williams Brewing is your online resource for prompt delivery of quality home brewing supplies. Since 1979, Williams Brewing has offered the finest equipment and the freshest ingredients, backed by the best customer service in the business. Do you like to mash using efficient fly sparging, but would like an easy way to heat your strike and sparge water? Enter the new Brewer's Edge electric mash water heater, a plug-in, anywhere, precisely controlled heater for strike and sparge water. Ditch the fumes and second burner and make mashing easy. Go to williamsbrewing.com today and browse their vast selection. That's williamsbrewing.com. Orders placed by 4 p.m. Pacific Time weekdays ship the same day. Brewing is easy the Williams way.
That's it. I've had it. I am never putting hops in my beer again.
What? Why?
It's just too ridiculous. Insane prices, stupid contracts, high shipping costs, crappy selection.
Dude, you need Nico Brew.
Nico Brew will rock your f***ing face right the f*** off your f***ing skull. $5 shipping to all 50 states, plus fantastic international rates get you low prices on Nico Brew's great selection of hops and more. Whether you're a home brewer, a pro brewer, or a homebrew shop owner, Nico Brew can get you the hops you need in increments big and small, single orders, spot buys, or full contracts. And there's only one place to join the uber special secret elite bare bones club where you'll get the best deals anywhere.
Holy shit.
NicoBrew.com. NIKOBREW. Nico Brew, your bare bones buddy in the brewing business.
Grog tags aren't just for labeling your home brews to hand out to your friends. They're the perfect way to round out your personal brewing marketing. Bringing your latest beer to a funeral? Craft a metal sign to go with it. Heading out to little Liam's bar mitzvah? Grog Tag custom bottle caps are awesome. Couldn't get out of jury duty this year? Grog Tag the hell out of the deliberation room with reusable labels. Grog Tag has an awesome array of products just waiting to be customized by you. Metal signs, coasters, tasting mats, bottle caps, tap handles. It's all there waiting for your designs at Grog Tag. Liven up your next party with the widest selection of custom products ever offered by a sponsor of the Brewing Network. Grog Tag. At least your beer will look good.
Back to the two guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
All right.
Do you think brewing is disgusting?
If it's done right, it's like sex. If it's done right. Right, Steve?
That's a point. Yeah.
That's the point. Make it as dirty as possible.
Yeah.
That's why we do sour beers. Want it dirty, like our sex.
That's a good slogan. Dirty.
I don't like sitting here because I can't see the faces Bevo is making to the things I say.
It's mostly her like gagging.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. I'm used to that. All right. What's the next question? Yeah. Don't. Were you reaching for your beer? Reach for the question.
It's good beer. All right. This one's from Sean. Hey guys.
Hey Sean.
Hey Sean. I've read that the wort for dry yeast doesn't need to be oxygenated because the yeast already went through the oxygen uptake phase and it will start the replication process as soon as you pitch it. Is this true? Should I not be oxygenating my wort when I pitch dry yeast? Thanks.
Right. I'm with you, John. I guess you could skip it, but like John, you're working on your next edition of How to Brew, and you're writing up stuff on high gravity beers. I mean, there's an instance where you add more oxygen. I mean, and especially at the initial pitch, it does not hurt to add that oxygen.
Right.
So,
I think part of what the dry yeast companies are trying to help, they're trying to make the
alleviate
yeast,
worry. Maybe?
Yeah, alleviate the worry factor, make the product a little easier to use. They do oxygenate the yeast before they dry them, so the dried yeast have good trehalose and glycogen reserves, and as they rehydrate, they're in a more vital state, a healthier state than, say, some batch of yeast that you've recovered from a previous fermentation. Unknown kind of thing.
Right. The liquid yeast manufacturers also do something very similar to ensure the glycogen reserves rise at the end.
Yeah. I mean, yeast these days is all very well cared for. We're brewing with yeast that's way better quality than what there was available, 10, 20 years ago. And so, yeah, but that aside, I mean, in terms of best practices and what Jamil and I are always trying to, tell everyone are best practices, because, oxygenate your wort, rehydrate, give your fermentation, its best chance of success.
Yeah, I'm sure you're saying to rehydrate once, but very interesting audio glitch that said rehydrate. Okay,
no.
Sure, John, we get it. You want us to rehydrate? Huh? I got it.
No. Rehydrate your dry yeast, oxygenate your wort, because these are best practices, and altogether it makes for a very robust brewing process. There are cases where you can cut corners. If you have a very robust process, you can cut some corners and still have a successful brew. But, the more corners you cut, the less likely your chance of success is. So, aerate your wort, rehydrate your yeast, all those good things. And if you're brewing a very strong beer, something, 1075 and greater, especially when you're hitting 1090 or 10100, a second aeration, 8 to 12 hours after pitching is very beneficial, because now you're taking that first generation and allowing them to get more oxygen and, beef up their cell walls and so on, and, get much healthier than if they were simply sharing the lipids from the parent cell.
Speaking of sharing lipids, I'm sure you would want to share more lipids, wouldn't you, John?
That's right.
I mean, are you getting enough lipids?
Yeah, I take some supplements now and then.
Well, at adamandeve.com, you can get more. More lipids. They want to give you more. They're going to give you 10 free gifts. All you got to do is use the offer code Jamil, Jamil, at adamandeve.com, and you're going to get first a sexy surprise for her, second a sexy surprise for you. I guess they're assuming, for him, which would be you, most of our listeners, but, all right, so there's one for her, one for him, and then there's a third for the both of you, and I believe that is the clit bumper. We are now allowed to announce that being the case.
It's like a bumper on your car or what?
Something I don't understand what that would be used for. Something for you both to enjoy. Plus, you get 6 free full-length adult DVD movies and free shipping. Free shipping. I mean, a lot of times they get you on that shipping and handling.
I like free.
I like free shipping. Free shipping always gets me to buy. So you buy, your one thing, you're going to get your 10 free gifts. All you got to do is use the offer code Jamil, Jamil, at adamandeve.com, and you'll get more lipids, more everything, right there. All right, next question, Steve.
All right. This one's selecting yeast for competitions. First off, I want you to know that I am so grateful for the time and energy that you have all put into your show over the last several years. It's been an amazing go-to resource for me, helping further my knowledge and understanding of this amazing hobby. I am curious about what your thoughts are on selecting the most appropriate generation of yeast for a competition. As you and many other sources have suggested, harvesting and repitching yeast can produce a more predictable and favorable fermentation profile, with the 3rd to 5th generations often being the strain's sweet spot. I want to be sure that the yeast I use in my competition beer is in tip-top shape, but I do not have the time to brew X number of batches beforehand in order to achieve this 3rd to 5th generation culture. I thought about whether or not it would be worth the effort and risk of taking a first-generation strain from the homebrew shop and growing it strictly in starters until it reaches generation 3 to 5. In your opinion, would this concept even be possible in the same context as harvesting and reusing yeast from consecutive batches? If so, would these benefits be worth the energy and risk of contamination?
Yeah, I always mention that, 3rd to 5th generation was always the sweet spot for me when I was doing a lot of home brewing and brewing a lot of competition beers. But, I mean, I don't know that that's necessarily the thing that's going to make the best beer. I mean, I think just growing it up and make sure, the yeast you have initially is very healthy and, that you're pitching the right amount and everything else surrounding it, temperature, nutrients, all that stuff. That might be more significant than the generational effect. But, I mean, I suppose you could do that. John, what's your...
Well, in general, I agree with you, Jamil. And actually, I agree with you pretty wholeheartedly, really. The adaptation of the yeast to a particular recipe will improve that recipe and improve that beer batch to batch. And every professional brewer you talk to will, attest to that. I mean, they, if they are in fact repitching their yeast, they say, 3rd or 4th, 5th generation, that yeast has gotten used to that fermentation regimen and the beer is, attenuating better, clearing more quickly, has that flavor profile they're looking for. But when you're brewing for a competition, if you're not brewing over and over and over again, under those same conditions, a full batch, etc. In other words, pitching the yeast to successive starters is not going to adapt that yeast to the full recipe and the full volume. So you're not going to get the same small intangibles that really make that batch shine.
Yeah, your full the growth in an actual beer fermentation versus like a stirred starter or something like that. It's really kind of you don't get quite the same effect, or it's like selective pressure really more than anything.
So negligible, pretty much, if not.
Jamil is right. Where in terms of brewing for a homebrew competition, you're much better focusing on the big picture, the big levers. Pitching rate, fermentation temp, quality of ingredients, all those factors, rather than trying to optimize for that. For the 1% improvement, overall. That fifth generation yeast of that recipe could potentially give it.
There you go. Good answer. All right. One more short break, and we'll come back with more of your questions right after this.
Are you looking for a simple brewing system that's great for all grain brewing, but everything on the market seems to be full of compromises? Blickman Engineering has the answer. The Blickman Brew Easy All Grain Brewing System. The Brew Easy is a complete system with easy upgrades and a beautiful compact design, perfect for any size brewing location. At its core, the Brew Easy is built on two gorgeous Blickman Boilermaker brew kettles, a high-temperature March pump, and either a top-tier gas burner or the new Boil Coil electric heater. The Brew Easy adapter lid allows the pots to stack on top of each other, forming an efficient, strong, and compact brewing setup that comes in 5, 10, and 20-gallon batch sizes. Upgrade your Brew Easy system with full automated control by adding a Blickman Tower of Power temp controller, and make moving around easy with the Blickman Kettle Cart. The Brew Easy is modular. If you already own a Boilermaker kettle, you can build your Brew Easy by purchasing just the modules you need. The new Brew Easy all-grain brewing system. See it today at BlickmanEngineering.com and brew with Blickman quality on your new Brew Easy.
Since the first time the Brewing Network microphones turned on, More Beer was behind it. More Beer sponsors the programming on the BN because, like you, they love brewing. And like the Brewing Network, they love sharing their knowledge. Morebeer.com isn't just a website to place your next equipment or ingredient order. Morebeer.com also gives you access to free beer information that will make you a better brewer. Go to morebeer.com and click into the Learning Center. You'll find podcasts, technical facts, video tutorials, and more, including access to The Buzz, More Beer's social network of more than 5,000 members. And some of them might even be crazier about beer than you are. Get over to morebeer.com today and take advantage of The Buzz, the forum, the Learning Center, and make sure you're signed up to receive the newest More Beer catalog. More Beer, bringing you absolutely everything for beer making. When I order a beer, I want my server to know more about it than I do. I want someone who enjoys good beer and loves helping others enjoy it too. I want someone who knows how to pour a perfect pint for every beer style. I want a Cicerone.
The Cicerone Certification Program is creating the type of people who help you enjoy great beer. Home brewers and craft beer lovers know beer is more flavorful and complex than ever, and it takes some serious knowledge to store and serve beer right. Cicerones know beer. There are 3 levels in the Cicerone program: Certified Beer Server, Certified Cicerone, and Master Cicerone. Cicerones are truly the sommeliers of beer. The best beer locations have a Certified Cicerone on staff. Relaxed and unpretentious. Cicerones are tested on storing and serving beer, beer styles, flavor and tasting, the brewing process and ingredients, and pairing food with beer. Learn more about your next beer guide at Cicerone.org. Certified Cicerone, because it takes top talent to present a perfect pint.
Ken Grossman of Sierra Nevada Brewing Company says making great beer is hard. Making the same great beer every day is harder. Brewers Publications announces its latest release for breweries of any type and size. Quality Management, an essential guide for brewers by Mary Pelletieri. Proper quality management for small, regional, and national breweries is critical. Whether you are an established business or brand new, learn the best ways to create and manage a quality system in your brewery. This book will guide you in developing a comprehensive program that will grow with your brewery, help ensure quality processes in the brewery, and continue providing great beer for your fans. Quality management for breweries is critical for continued success. This guidebook teaches you to integrate quality management in every level of the operation. It will guide you in developing a comprehensive program to ensure quality processes in your brewery. Quality Management, an essential guide for brewers, now available from Brewers Publications. Learn more at brewerspublications.com.
Learning to brew has never been so disgusting. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. Bevo, got some questions from the chat, I presume?
I do have questions from the chat. I don't know why I can't hear. Sorry. The first question is from Paul the Yellow.
It's not Paul the Brown?
No, Paul the Yellow.
Paul the Red.
On a homebrew scale, 5 to 10 gallon, can I make a cool ship that is to swallow for healthy fermentation? What is a good height to width ratio?
No.
Too shallow, I think, is what he's meant.
Right. So that's an interesting question because I've thought about that also because I'd like to build some cool ships. Along with my strange fermentation vessels from Britain, I want to make some cool ships too. And so I was wondering about that, and I've seen all sorts of different depths being done, but it's really, I think, the ratio, when you agree, John, it has something to do more with how rapidly it cools down and that allowing certain organisms to populate and not others, and also to, you got to hit the right balance.
Yeah. I largely think a cool ship at the homebrew scale is a waste of effort. I think you're. I mean, a cool ship is an attempt to solve a problem at a large scale, where you have, 100 gallons or 200, 300 gallons of wort that is, hot, and you've got to cool it off, in a decent amount of time, and you're also trying to dissipate the heat of fermentation, in that large a volume. At the 5 or 10 gallon scale, you don't have that much volume, you don't have that much thermal mass to worry about. So, so taking a step back, what are you trying to do with a cool ship besides shed heat? You want an open fermentation. Well, then, a common plastic storage bin from Target, that's used for storing clothes and whatever, that gives you a wort depth of, say 4 inches or so. That will give you that, higher ester profile, that more aerated fermentation profile that you're probably looking for.
Well, I think it's more for inoculation of spontaneous ferment for native organisms, and then the ferment could be done in a barrel or another vessel, but that initial inoculum that you're trying to get.
Yeah. Well, then that's. Yeah, I mean, I don't think. So if you're trying to spread out the wort to get the most bugs into the wort overnight, I don't know. There's a few breweries around the U.S. that do wild fermentations like that, and they do leave the windows open to inoculate the wort, and they do it in a wide open fermenter, but they're also doing it at 35 degrees in November. They're not doing it during high summer.
Right. One of the things that I've come to learn is, one of the reasons they do this when they start brewing in Belgium, what they'll do is they'll wait for a certain number of freezing nights, and then they can start brewing. And so I've stuck to that myself. At Heretic, we've done some open vessel. We'll take a 55-gallon drum. Right. We'll cut the top off, fill it 3/4 of the way with wort, and then we raise it on our scissor lift under the skylight vents. They're open all the time, and we'll leave it there overnight. But we wait for winter, and we wait for a certain number of freezing nights before we do it, and that has given us quite a good collection of organisms, and we've had a lot of fun with that. And the aroma is just fantastic. So, I mean, that's almost like a square volume. That's kind of maybe it's a little deeper than it is wide.
Yeah, so the cool ship isn't really needed. It's, I think you've successfully done it with a taller, narrower.
Right, I think it has. And if you look at like Russian River, they have a really skinny, tall cool ship in like their barrel, one of the barrel rooms at the brewery. And I always thought that, I'm like, wow, that's really weird. Look how tall and narrow it is. So I'm not really sure, but I would think for the best results, there's some magic to how quickly it's cooling down. And it's not really about surface area per se, but it is how quickly that volume is cooling down, because that's going to affect what survives when it lands in there and what doesn't. And, I think that's part of also like waiting for winter and all that. I think it's all interrelated. I think you can do well outside of those parameters, but if you really truly want the best, I think you need to figure that aspect of it out. That's something I haven't figured out. All right. Next question.
I should turn my microphone on. Next question. This is by Craft Beer Geek. Sorry. When brewing a hybrid such as a Kolsch, how necessary is it to lager? Is it only because of the yeast staying in suspension? Is the yeast cleaning up? Is the yeast cleaning up byproducts? I think I missed a show and/or paragraph in the book about this.
Well, lagering or just cold storage for a period of time has effects other than the yeast being active. Now, if you really truly want to have yeast activity, then you can't cool it down too fast, and you can't cool it down below like 40 F, or the yeast pretty much just shut down. So I would say it's a little bit of both. I would some of the settling out is nice. So you got anything to add to that, John?
Yeah. Yes, part one is, you do need to ferment the beer first fully. And then in that context, do you need to lager to, clarify the beer? Kolsch strains can be low flocculating. And so cold maturation or, cold conditioning, clarification can help help drop that yeast and clarify the beer. But I think you need to do the diacetyl rest before you do your clarification, before you do that cold step. And so check out the yeast book and the lagering chapter, and that should lay it out pretty well.
There you go. All right. we, my friend, have reached the end of the show. We had a couple more questions. We will save them for next time. It seems like we had a lot of Q&A about yeast and fermentation.
Yeah.
No problem. If you got questions, send them in to brewstrong at thebrewingnetwork.com, or, anytime we're doing a Q&A, go ahead and jump in live with Bevo or on the phone, and we'll take care of you that way.
Mm-hmm. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. We're going to be doing it. If you're listening live, we're going to do another Q&A. It's going to be a little more potpourri. Speaking of something,
potpourri.
I don't know, potpourri. How about that, John?
Check out the Brewing Network store.
And check out the Brewing Network store. You can get your favorite potpourri at the Brewing Network store. All sorts of flavors and scents and textures. Yes. Bevo says yes. We've got them all. And anything you buy from the Brewing Network store goes to the bottom line of the Brewing Network, keeps shows like this on the air. And don't forget to send an email to John or feedback at blickmanengineering.com and tell him how much you appreciate that he pays for the show so you don't have to. If you want to keep getting it for free, I would suggest knock out an email every now and then and go, hey, send it from different email addresses. I mean, the one of you is listening, maybe sign up for 10 free Hotmail addresses and just send them each.
The ones that destroy themselves after you use it
right.
for
and
a
then
day.
translate it into a different language, and then translate it back to English, and then send that, and then it sounds like it's coming from somebody totally different. There you go. So do that for me. I'd appreciate it. Until then, everybody, brew strong.
Brew strong, everyone.